Welcome to Finding Roots, the show where I discover the diverse worlds and cultures of renowned musicians, delving into their unique stories while uncovering the passions and motivations that drive them in their musical journeys, while recreating flavors that are significant in their lives. Today, dear viewer, I think you should grab a glass of wine or a bottle of beer, because you're basically crashing my party. I mean, I did leave the door open, so you're quite welcome. I'm hanging out and chatting with a couple of my favorite trumpet players, Jeff Curnow, Associate Principal Trumpet, and Tony Prisk, Second Trumpet of the Philadelphia Orchestra. Jeff asked me to make lasagna, and since it's my own recipe, I'll share that. First, crack 6 eggs, and then I mix them into 600 grams of finely ground semolina flour. You can also use Tipo 00, which is more traditional, but I like the texture of the semolina since I use the noodles without boiling first. I let them cook in the tomato sauce. After putting the pasta through the machine, starting on the widest setting and gradually getting thinner, I like to hang the noodles on a long rolling pin suspended between 2 chairs. Now let's welcome Jeff and Tony so they can help me put the lasagna together.
Look at this. Wow.
Pasta.
Oh, you guys are hardcore.
Oh my goodness.
Would you like some coffee? I just finished brewing.
Absolutely. It sounds good.
Yeah.
My big thing lately has been we got a Breville Oracle machine, which is like the espresso with a double boiler, so I can make latte art.
You have to do a trumpet.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
That's
right.
Your goal. That's your
Wow.
goal.
You get a trumpet.
Yeah, I wonder if
it's going to make you famous.
Bet you could do
It is, right. Oh my gosh, that'll be my thing. Man.
The orchestra got in yesterday.
Yes,
Yeah. And so you came straight here for lasagna.
that's right.
That's right.
Thank
That's
you.
right.
I haven't eaten anything since yesterday. It's been like 48 hours, so I'm
Oh my god.
ready
Okay,
to-
so
ready
the
to settle
lasagna is
down.
going to have to be huge.
We're basically in North Italy right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. When you have lasagna, I have options because depending on where you're from, I know it's like different, right? So I have normal mozzarella. I also have buffalo mozzarella. I can make a bechamel top, or I can make normal cheese top. You guys got to tell me like what's the real thing? What's the
He
what's the
probably
way
had
you
Velveeta
want?
top.
I'm thinking,
Velveeta.
That's true. What does Stouffer's put on the top of their frozen? Yeah, let's see.
Put some cheddar cheese on top.
On a cheesesteak, Philly cheesesteak, it would be with cheese. Yeah, the cheese
exactly.
whiz.
Cheese whiz. Can I please have this Philly steak cheese whiz version?
This
Actually,
is-
yeah, we want the Philly lasagna. It's gotta
This
be
is
like
so-
cheesesteak in the sauce.
This is so far above anything that I thought we'd be getting here. I mean, this is like real.
So this is how I know Jeff. When I was 15 and looked like this, and Jeff was in his 20s and looked like this, I went to study with him and the Empire Brass, one of the greatest chamber music ensembles ever formed, at the Boston University Tanglewood Institute. 2 years later, I decided to attend Boston University so that I could study more with Jeff and the rest of the ensemble. Now back to the recipe. The tomato sauce is made from halved tomatoes sprinkled with garlic, salt, thyme, and olive oil, roasted for 45 minutes in a 170 degrees Celsius or 350 degree Fahrenheit oven. Then I put it through a food mill to get rid of the seeds and skins, and seasoned it with a little sherry or red wine vinegar and sugar as needed. So the tomato sauce is actually from my own homegrown tomatoes that I roasted them and made like passata this summer.
Oh my God.
And then the beef is, I have a Japanese Luxembourgish friend who has imported Wagyu cows.
Oh, this is far and above anything I was expecting. This is fantastic. Basically, I asked for lasagna because it's like comfort food.
Totally.
Whenever I'm stressed out, or when I was a kid, always put a big thing of lasagna out there, and the family would just kind of cool out and relax and have a great dinner.
This is going to be your most relaxed tour.
That's right, because of
lasagna.
So this is as comforting as it can get. This is like awesome.
Cool.
This is
Perfect.
fantastic. Exactly what I was looking for.
Since Jeff doesn't have an opinion on the cheese, and you're the Italian American, I think I have to ask you before. I made the mistake on a previous episode of I did Ukrainian borscht. I made it with I didn't make it with cabbage. Because I had beet greens and Swiss chard growing in the garden. I was like, here we have some, you see the Swiss chard? That was what I was thinking we could use as a bit of a substitute for the...
Right.
it'll be fine.
Horrors.
It's similar,
Same.
right? And I was like, well, it'll be like, and they were both like, ooh. And then on top of that, I put beans in because I had a recipe that suggested putting beans in, and Vadim was absolutely like, that will taste interesting, I am sure. I was like, okay, so you've got to, yeah.
I have no opinion really.
No opinion?
No,
Okay.
I feel like if you're using ricotta.
I've got ricotta, and I'll mix some. Normally, I put some salt, pepper, basil, and egg in it.
The fact that I walked in here and there's pasta hanging over there. You know what my mother would say? Was, hey, Mom, could you make some pasta?
Yeah, I was more used to like watching like this hard sheet of pasta going into the boiling water. So.
Right.
So maybe I'll do it the way I've been doing it lately, which is more with buffalo mozzarella, because we have some really good access to Italian buffalo mozzarella. It's a little bit more soft and kind of stringy and pulley, but like then
sounds awesome.
It's tasty. So let's go for that. Well, in that case, enjoy your coffee. I'm going to finish making the pasta, and we'll start layering in just a minute. So
That looks professional.
well, I'm trying my best.
That's awesome.
But so tell me about, like, because we picked this because of your childhood, and you grew up in Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania, I'm a Pennsylvania boy. I studied. My father is a trumpet player, and he was my high school band director. And
how was that?
It was okay.
Is this like a whole can of worms that I haven't okay, gotcha.
I love it.
If you want to delve into the psychological, torture.
We need a box of Kleenex.
Okay. Got it.
But my mom was kind of a singer, and I have, one side of my family is completely musical, and my uncle played with Stan Kenton, and he has a music publishing company, and my aunt was a euphonium player and a singer, and
cool. And your sister's a musician too, right?
yes, one of my sisters is an opera singer.
Yep.
And teaches in Pennsylvania.
Cool.
And so I started coming down to Philadelphia to study with a member of the Philadelphia Orchestra. And I remember my father coming in, and he had the album, the Gabrieli.
Oh,
the triple
famous
album,
one.
the very famous album with Chicago and Cleveland and Philly. Yep. And he brought it over to me, and I was really into the trumpet, and I loved this album, and the album cover is there, and he said, "You see this guy right here? That's Seymour Rosenfeld. You're going to study with him next week." I was like, "Oh my God, this guy right here!" I said, "Yeah." So I went down and took lessons with Seymour, and it was fun. He was perfect for me at the time where I was and what I needed. And then I continued with him at Temple. I went to Temple University and always wanted to play the Philadelphia Orchestra. That was my thing. I just loved it. But as a musician, you can't decide where you're going to live or where you're going to play.
No.
So,
unless you're Jeffrey Curnow.
Right. It took me 20 years. I left Philadelphia and I just went 20 years. I went with the Empire Brass. Then I went to the Dallas Symphony. I just figured it would never happen.
Yeah.
And then Dave calls me and says, "Hey, we didn't hire anybody for this position. You want to come out and audition?" And I said, "Oh, okay." So, all of a sudden I'm sitting with the Philadelphia Orchestra. It was like, pinch me. This is the craziest thing ever. That I'm in this orchestra that I watched as a kid, that I loved. I studied with someone in this orchestra. And then my wife, who was in Dallas, also got a job with the orchestra. So it was like lightning strike twice. It was really fantastic.
That's an incredible story when you have both of you are able to make that.
Because she relocated from Dallas, and since she was in the finals for the Philly auditions in the past, she was able to sub. But then they had big violin openings, 5 openings. That year, and so we got very lucky, and then all of a sudden there I am playing in this orchestra that I've loved all my life, and I couldn't believe it.
And this makes me feel so much better for losing the job. I was in the finals when he won the job. This makes me feel so much better about not being, not winning the position that you were destined to win.
Absolutely. It was all the love here, right here.
Eventually,
I'm like, I'm gonna get to play in that orchestra.
And as soon as Tony's sitting next to me, he was like,
yeah, and it was like, he's like, why did I come to the Philadelphia Orchestra? Be careful what you wish for, Jeff.
right.
Where are you from, and like how did you end up in Philly?
Also, a very long kind of journey to get here, but it was because I was from Chicago suburbs. I didn't study with anybody in high school. Really, I was like just a really good band kid, And I went to the University of Illinois as a music ed major, studied with Ray Sasaki, who was, like a formidable trumpet player and a great teacher, who set me up right. And he encouraged me. He said, why don't you try playing trumpet for a living? If it doesn't work out, you love band, so you can always go back and teach band. But why don't you give trumpet a try? So I was like, all right. So I just practiced my ass off. Once I decided that I was going to be a performance major, I was like, that's it. I'm gonna work my ass off until I get a gig. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. So then I met Paul Merkello, and he was like, because he's from Champaign-Urbana, and just started learning orchestral excerpts and stuff. And I was like, oh, I can actually make money doing this. So then went to Montreal to do my master's, and then went down from Montreal. I got New World. And then I was at New World for 4 years, from the New World Symphony. And then from the New World, I went to Houston and played second trumpet in Houston for 11 years. And was in the finals for a lot of other jobs at New World and in Houston. I had done a lot of the rounds, and Philly was one of them. Like twice I was in the finals for his gig. Yeah. And then and apparently it wasn't good enough because I did like we better call somebody like Jeff Curnow, and they're like Tony ain't gonna cut it. But eventually I was like, I always thought I always actually thought from playing a little bit with the Philadelphia Orchestra and auditioning there, spending some time in Philly, that I was going to live in Philly someday. So I kind of almost manifested that for myself a little bit. And when Bob Early moved down to Fourth, I actually really wanted Roger's job. I wanted to play fourth trumpet in the Philadelphia Orchestra. I thought that would be great. I can just go play with a great orchestra, but not have to work that hard.
This explains a lot. This explains a lot. Now I get
you
it.
and Leon, right. Same page. Man, why did I take a principal job?
You're right. Well, yeah. I mean, because I was playing second trumpet in Houston. I like playing second trumpet. Second trumpet for me is I don't know. It actually seemed to work for just my mentality. I don't like having to be in the hot seat all the time.
So let's see Tony's advice to trumpet students.
One more espresso and I'll be ready for my Pines Room video. Oh, hi there. Welcome to another episode of Learning Second Trumpet Excerpts. My name is Anthony Prisk, and I play second trumpet in the Philadelphia Orchestra. I also teach at Peabody and Temple University. I play Yamaha.
So the advice is drink coffee. Thanks for the helpful tips, Tony.
But I wanted to play. I always liked playing with better players than me. And for me, getting a job in Philly was I'm sitting next to Dave, I'm sitting next to Jeff. This is great. So when I auditioned, I really had an established life in Houston, and I was really happy there as far as my life. But then I moved to Philly. It was I go from a 3-bedroom house in Houston to a 1-bedroom condo in Philly. And I'm like, oh my God, why did I do this? But then I remind myself every day sitting in the Philadelphia Orchestra that this is why I did this. And then I met my wife, and now I have a child, and it's great.
That's awesome. So is your wife in the orchestra as well?
She is. She's a violinist.
Tony and Julia's engagement was rather epic, so let's have a look.
Julia Lee and the first violins, will you please stand? I have an important question for you, and I would like everyone to hear it.
Your wife is Chinese. And your wife is Japanese, no?
Half Japanese.
Half Japanese.
I think it's great having that international, mix
Absolutely.
within a family, because that's the way the world is now.
Yeah,
You know, I mean,
exactly.
it's everything is really global, and so it's fun. My kids, both my kids wanted to learn how to speak Japanese. Both my kids are interested in the Japanese culture. They also are kind of interested in my English heritage, but not so much.
They're like,
I so sympathize with that.
I think-
Like, that's my girls too. They're like, yeah, Dad's like really cool. He's from Taiwan and blah blah blah. And Mom's, she's just that one, like normal. She's from like middle of nowhere, Maine. So that's it.
Yes, as soon as I'm trying to get them into English food, like pasties and all the stuff that
once you get past the fish and chips,
the Cornish.
what else is there?
Eating,
Shepherd's pie.
Shepherd's pie. Yeah, it's not a lot there, but still, it's your heritage.
So I think you're gonna make some pasta.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So you know
Forget
what
about
you're
it.
doing?
Forget about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a little bit what I'm doing. I don't know. You want me to lay some sauce, some gravy, a little gravy in a pot.
Bottom. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's do that. I'll do that.
Okay.
Forget about it. This is my theme song. This is what they played in my house all the time.
All
It's
the
like
time,
it
yeah,
was like an ongoing thing. We just had it playing in our heads. Hey, Jeff, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I think you might have a thing for this business.
It's nice
making
having
music.
Italian in this section.
Forget about it.
You're doing a good job there.
It's like Italian.
I think
It's
better
fugazi,
than my cheese.
yeah.
It's better than my cheese.
Look at that. Look at that. Can you put a little bit of special condensation in the sauce? Like just a little drip of
I'll get a little mouthpiece. To this one.
yeah, like right. Now you're gonna have the sound that you're looking for.
Tony.
I could tell you why. The ocean near the shore.
Awesome.
Chin, chin.
Thank
Guys,
you.
thank you so much for
Fantastic.
coming.
This
So
looks
nice to
wonderful.
see you.
So
Yeah.
great to be here.
How do you think the business has changed since you started? Because so I met you when I was 15, and
Well, you were at the Empire Brass Center.
I was at Empire Brass Center. That's when we met. No, 90. Sorry, it was
90.
90. In 92, I started at BU with you as well.
So we're the
but-
same age, yeah.
Yeah.
Quite
you
a
were
bit-
young.
Quite a bit younger than.
Yeah. Well, me too. So.
Without saying anything else.
He didn't have any more hair back then. He just had
Oh my God.
different
he had
hair.
So much hair. He had so much hair.
The mullet, the whole
The
thing.
mullet was amazing.
All you need to do now is show the class brass.
Exactly.
Album
Because
cover.
that came out around then, and
Right,
so we
yeah.
were all obsessively listening to it as well.
Right.
Dorm rooms were only that.
Being the oldest guy in the room, yeah, the music business has changed an amazing amount since those days. There's certainly when I was just graduating college, just the internet alone.
Yeah.
When I was going to school, there was no internet. You just learned about the orchestras and the musicians in your little area. So for me, it was the Philadelphia Orchestra, and that was it. Chicago was like way over there. I knew there was an orchestra there, and I'd heard the Chicago Symphony, but you never, you'd have to fly there to go see it, or you get,
People didn't tour much. Was there a touring culture in the
Not
orchestras?
really. I don't remember, orchestras would come through town, but, you had Eugene Ormandy who stayed with the orchestra, and almost every concert the Philadelphia Orchestra was Eugene Ormandy.
Yeah.
Now you've got music directors who come in and do a certain number of weeks, and then we have nothing but, guest conductors after that. That was part of the time when the Philadelphia Orchestra's sound was basically Ormandy and forming this whole thing, and that's how that was born. Once you get other music directors coming through and other conductors, then they're asking for something different from you. And if it's a European conductor, he's going to say, no, well, we don't do things like this in Brussels, or we don't do things like this in Berlin. We'd like to hear this sound from the orchestra. That's changed a lot, but the internet in itself has changed everything. Being global now, you're hearing trumpet players from all over the planet, and musicians from all over the planet, and orchestras from all over the planet, and it's influencing everything. I mean, it's more like when you're expected to play Mahler now. It's not a Philadelphia Orchestra Mahler. It's really a Mahler. It's a German Mahler. It's the way it's the way perhaps it was intended to be played, arguably. But the Philadelphia Mahler was kind of cool too, to have that Philadelphia sound. So it's changing a lot. It seems to be changing faster. Yeah. That all of a sudden, you go from records to compact discs to streaming. Now it's just nothing but streaming, and I can get online and stream anything and see live concerts on TV from Berlin, and it's amazing, and at the same time a little overwhelming.
We were talking about how orchestras were becoming too homogenized. Do you think that's still an issue, or do you think that's actually, because you were talking about that you still feel like Philly has its own voice?
Yeah, I do think there's a homogenization of the orchestral sound. But when you listen to the Philly Orchestra, the string sound is still there. Yeah. We're known for the string sound, and that hasn't gone away. And I think Muti actually tried to change that. He wanted to do away with the Philadelphia sound. He said, we play Rossini, we play it like this, we play Beethoven, we play it like Beethoven. We don't do the Philadelphia sound here. But somehow the Philadelphia sound is still there. And it's still great. It's a very lush string sound that I think was started at the Academy of Music because the Academy of Music wasn't the greatest acoustic in the world. It was kind of dead. That's something I've loved about this orchestra, and something that I'd really miss if it was gone.
Yeah, and I do fear that might happen. Because being in a different hall.
Yeah, to the Kimmel Center, you think it's changed a little bit
And it's getting to the point where there's not a lot of people that know what the Philadelphia Orchestra sound was anymore. Like all the students that are winning the jobs in the string section, that they're coming from Curtis, which is great, and I think that's part of the Philly tradition, right? Is that a lot of our string players come from Curtis, where they're all there to be amazing soloists. So you have this very virtuosic violin section, and you have a very virtuosic string section, where conductors constantly stand in front of our orchestra and go, oh my gosh, I can literally pick any tempo and you can play it.
Yeah, you pretty much have to hit the ground running. What's different is we do the Rite of Spring years ago, and we all have to kind of relearn it. And we'd have a week, maybe a couple extra rehearsals to get the Rite of Spring together. Now, it's 2 rehearsals and you gotta go. And I could say these days, it's 1 rehearsal. Yeah. We'll take the Rite of Spring to a summer venue, and it's 1 rehearsal, and then you play it that night.
So in London, when we lived there, the orchestras were already on this sort of 2 rehearsals and a concert thing, and London's really famous for that, I think. And here they're still running more on 3 to 4 rehearsals, depending. And so you have seen this shift in Philly, that you're on down to just a few rehearsals. But do you find it doesn't disturb your sort of concept of sound and things? Or do you find that having a little bit more time would be more useful?
For the standard literature, we're pretty much good to go, after 1 rehearsal. But they'll have 2 rehearsals.
Right.
And therein lies the problem.
Right.
Now, we can do Beethoven 9 in 1 rehearsal, and the audience is looking for something a little different.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's overwhelming how many recordings there are out there. All the way from Furtwängler to Yannick, you've got all these recordings that they're digging up and making CDs, and you're being able to stream all this music and all these different interpretations. So you can hear Beethoven 5 a bazillion different ways. As a conductor, you kind of walk in and say, well, what are we really looking for here? What makes this more current? How can we bring Beethoven into the 21st century?
So have you seen a big change like in the orchestra culture as well over the last like time? Or do you feel like it's kind of more similar like since you started?
I think the goals for a job have changed a little bit. I think that being a teacher now, you see that students now aren't so much looking for orchestra jobs as much as they are military band jobs. Interesting. Or maybe even wanting to do more solo studio work. The orchestra business also, there's a pops element. We do rock, we do disco. We've done, in Houston Symphony Pops was like disco, rock, Broadway, movies, all this kind of stuff. And the movie thing is really big. That's, I think, how it's changed the most, is that in order to pay the bills, a lot of orchestras are doing these things. Even though I don't think that orchestras really consider how those things were recorded, and that playing the movie all the way through is not what they did in the studio. It's like
it's difficult.
It's really
hard. Yeah.
What are some of the hardest ones you guys have done? Like, what do you think was really difficult?
Indiana Jones.
Yeah, and some of the Harry Potter ones that aren't John Williams, have some really awkward licks in it and stuff.
Really hard. Yeah. One of the hardest ones we did was singing in American in Paris.
American in Paris, we did that. Yeah.
Crazy amount of playing.
Such fun music though.
It's mostly big band.
Yeah. And it's also the length of time you play, right? I think that's orchestra musicians play very short, intense moments,
yeah, exactly,
and then
right.
A big break. And when you're doing those scores, it's not like that.
Yeah, right.
And then you could be playing Bruckner Symphony the week before, and so now all of a sudden you're doing a completely opposite stylistic way of playing the trumpet, in which you got to change equipment and all of a sudden jump into Benny Goodman big band style playing after doing Bruckner 6 or something like that.
That's crazy.
That's the flexibility you've got to have these days, because movies aren't going away.
Yeah, the one thing we haven't gotten a chance to talk about is obviously everybody loves your cartoons. You have no idea how often people send me your cartoons, not realizing that I know you already. I'm always like,
sorry.
Yes, no, it's awesome, it's so good. So yeah, how did you get into that?
I did a lot of cartooning when I was on the road with the Empire Brass. I did cartoons of the guys and cartoons of the experiences we'd have on the road. But at that time, I was sending cartoons to a newspaper, the Berkshire Eagle, and doing political cartoons. Yep. And then I kind of took a break for it. I got a few of those published. I took a break from it when I went to Dallas. Then I got back into it and was doing some things online, cartooning and animating.
The technique of targeting involves two elements. Bullseye.
And I've always been interested in that kind of thing. So I've kind of found my niche in classical music cartoons, which not many people are doing, and not a lot of people understand.
That's my favorite ones, are the ones that are so esoteric and they make me laugh.
Right.
And then everybody else around is like, why are you laughing?
It's easy to make fun of the classical music business.
So thank you guys so much for coming. It's so much fun.
This was
I
awesome.
Just wish we could spend the rest of the day just hanging out and chatting and hearing all these amazing
and
stories.
watching you cook. Yeah. I could eat this, in
awesome.
7 days.
We're having a home cooked meal on the road.
I'm so
this is
happy
amazing.
about that. Yeah, I was thinking we might think I want all this European food to have, it's home cooked food.
No, this was perfect. This was perfect.
I hope you enjoyed our party. It was a blast to have these guys at the house, and I'm looking forward to the next epic hang. Do you want to hear more stories like this? Subscribe to my channel to discover other musicians and gain insight into their lives.